My greedy boyfriend completely shattered my heart when he dumped me for an older billionaire sugar mama, but his arrogant smirk permanently vanished when I showed up to their engagement party and had them both arrested for massive corporate fraud. Emma and I pretended to be a struggling, minimum-wage barista to see if Ryan actually loved me for who I am. But Ryan was disgustingly obsessed with luxury, constantly complaining about our tiny apartment and my cheap, simple clothes. One evening, he aggressively threw my promise ring into the dirt, laughing cruelly as a massive, glowing Rolls-Royce pulled up to the curb. A wealthy, heavily Botoxed older woman named Stella stepped out of the luxury car, dripping in expensive diamonds and a tight gold dress. I need a woman who can buy me Rolexes and penthouses, Emma, not a pathetic girl who smells like cheap coffee beans, Ryan sneered viciously at me. Stella looked me up and down with pure disgust, violently kissing my boyfriend right in front of my face before they sped away into the night. I was left standing alone on the dark pavement, but instead of crying pathetically, a cold, calculating, and incredibly dangerous alpha female smile slowly spread across my face. What Ryan and Stella didn't know was that I wasn't just a simple broke barista. I was the hidden, sole billionaire heiress and ultimate CEO of the sterling global conglomerate. And the most hilarious, sickening twist of all was that Stella wasn't a billionaire at all. She was merely a mid-level regional manager working at my company. While Ryan thought he had secured a massive fortune, my private corporate investigators discovered that Stella had been secretly embezzling millions of dollars from my corporate accounts to fund her fake, flashy sugar mama lifestyle. 2 weeks later, Stella hosted a lavish, highly publicized engagement party on a rented mega yacht to blindly show off her handsome new toy boy to her snobbish friends. The yacht deck was packed with wealthy guests when I suddenly pushed past the security guards, wearing a dangerously tight, custom black revenge dress that pushed up my massive cleavage.
Stella.
Security! Throw this broke, pathetic barista off my luxury yacht right now before I call the police! Stella shrieked aggressively, pointing her trembling finger directly at my face. But instead of security, 6 heavily armed FBI agents stormed onto the wooden deck, immediately surrounding the horrified, frozen couple. Ryan physically stumbled backward, his face turning entirely pale with sheer, unadulterated terror as I slowly pulled a glowing red corporate audit file from my designer clutch. Actually, Stella, you don't own this yacht or that Rolls-Royce because you stole exactly $12 million from my personal company, I announced with absolute, freezing authority, my voice echoing through the silent, shocked crowd. Stella's jaw dropped completely, her expensive champagne glass shattering on the wooden deck as she realized she had just insulted her supreme, untouchable boss. I am the global CEO of the Sterling Empire, and as of this exact second, you are officially fired and under federal arrest, I declared, staring at them with pure, ruthless dominance. Ryan dropped heavily to his knees, sobbing hysterically and begging for mercy, as the FBI agents violently slammed heavy steel handcuffs onto Stella's wrists. Emma, please, I didn't know she was broke. I still love you, Ryan cried pathetically, desperately trying to grab my expensive high heels. I aggressively yanked my leg away from his filthy grasp, looking down at his ruined, crying face with absolute, cold-blooded zero pity. Today, my gold-digging ex-boyfriend is buried in massive legal debt, and his fake sugar mama is rotting in a federal prison cell, while I sit flawlessly on my absolute throne as the ultimate corporate queen. My narcissistic husband publicly dumped me on a live podcast, completely unaware that I secretly wrote the code for his entire billion-dollar tech empire. For 5 exhausting years, I hid my beauty and worked exclusively in the shadows. I spent sleepless nights building the revolutionary algorithm that turned Julian into a Silicon Valley superstar. I let him take all the credit, wearing oversized hoodies and thick glasses, happy to just support the man I loved. But massive wealth and fame turned him into an absolute monster. Yesterday, he went on a massively popular live-streamed podcast with his new secret girlfriend, a flashy supermodel named Roxy. Right there, in front of millions of live viewers, he laughed cruelly into the microphone,
calling me a boring plain nobody who contributed absolutely nothing to his success. He announced he was divorcing me to upgrade his brand, effectively locking me out of the very company I built from the ground up. I watched the broadcast from our living room, but I didn't shed a single tear. What Julian's massive ego made him forget was that I never gave him the master patents, and I secretly programmed an absolute kill switch into the core server architecture. Today was the most important day of his miserable life, the highly anticipated global launch event for his new flagship software. He was strutting across the glowing stage, bragging to thousands of investors and reporters. I didn't show up as the messy, exhausted nerd he threw away. I pushed open the auditorium doors wearing a flawless, vibrant magenta designer suit, letting my blonde hair fall perfectly down my back. I was flanked by a team of elite federal financial investigators who had been tracking his illegal asset transfers. The electronic stadium music abruptly stopped as the massive crowd gasped in absolute shock at my transformation. Julian stumbled backward on the stage, his microphone dropping from his trembling hand as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "Who let you in here?" he stuttered, his face turning pale with sheer terror as he realized who held the real power. "I'm just fixing a glitch in my system," I whispered softly, pulling out my smartphone. With one simple tap, I triggered the kill switch, instantly crashing his entire global network and turning the massive screens behind him a glowing, terrifying red. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly walked onto the stage and detained him for massive corporate fraud and intellectual property theft. Roxy fell to her knees in the front row, sobbing and begging the agents not to freeze her stolen bank accounts. I walked right up to the stage, looking down at the pathetic narcissist who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your system has been deleted," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away to face justice. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom with absolutely zero influence, while I relaunch my company as the sole billionaire CEO. If you love seeing arrogant narcissists get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, how satisfying was that crash? My arrogant husband kissed my best friend right in front of my face, completely unaware that my blindness had already been cured. 3 months ago, a terrible car accident temporarily took my sight, forcing me to rely entirely on my wealthy husband, Julian, and my lifelong best friend, Chloe. I played the role of the helpless, trusting wife, sitting quietly in our luxury mansion. But last week, my vision fully returned. I kept it a total secret, wanting to surprise them, until I walked into the living room and saw the horrifying truth. Julian and Chloe were intimately tangled together on the sofa, silently mocking me and holding back cruel laughter as I blindly tapped my white cane across the floor. They thought I was entirely in the dark. The very next morning, Julian guided my hand to sign what he claimed were routine medical insurance papers. In reality, he was tricking me into transferring my massive family inheritance directly into his private accounts. As soon as the ink dried, they dropped the act, aggressively pushed me out the front doors into the freezing rain, and threw my white cane into the mud. I collapsed on the wet pavement, but my tears were entirely fake. What those two pathetic traitors didn't know was that the documents I signed didn't transfer my wealth. They legally transferred hundreds of millions of dollars in massive corporate debt into Julian's name. Tonight, Julian and Chloe were hosting a lavish penthouse gala to celebrate their newly stolen fortune. I didn't return to the building as a broken, helpless, blind woman. I pushed open the grand penthouse doors, wearing a flawless, crimson designer suit, completely ditching my dark glasses. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively party music abruptly stopped as the crowd gasped in absolute shock. Julian stumbled backward, his crystal glass shattering on the marble floor as he stared directly into my perfectly focused eyes. You can see?" Chloe stuttered, desperately trying to hide behind him as her face turned pale with sheer terror. "I saw everything, and I own everything," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the real digital files, fully exposing their massive financial fraud and immediate bankruptcy. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire elite crowd. Chloe fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to save her from total ruin. I looked down at the people who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your reign in the dark is over," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom facing justice, while I rule my empire with perfect vision. If you love seeing toxic traitors get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below. What would you have done to them? My arrogant husband threw me out of our house to move his secret mistress in, completely unaware that I was the anonymous billionaire who owned his entire company. For 5 years, I played the role of the quiet, devoted housewife, letting Marcus believe he was the sole provider for our luxury lifestyle. But last month, I discovered he had been living a double life. He was secretly engaged to a younger, incredibly toxic woman named Valeria, funding her extravagant lifestyle with our joint accounts. Yesterday, he finally made his move. He brought Valeria into our living room, tossed my packed bags onto the floor, and told me I was being evicted. Valeria laughed cruelly, inspecting her diamond ring, calling me a worthless freeloader who didn't deserve to live in a mansion. I cried, begged him not to do this, and slowly walked out into the freezing rain with just one small suitcase. But the moment the heavy doors closed, my tears stopped instantly. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I didn't just live in that house. My private holding company owned the entire estate, the cars, and the massive tech conglomerate where Marcus worked. Tonight, they were hosting a lavish corporate gala to celebrate his promotion to CEO, using my stolen credit cards to fund the party. I didn't return wearing cheap clothes to beg for my marriage back. I pushed open the grand ballroom doors wearing a flawless royal blue designer suit, flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively party music abruptly stopped as the crowd gasped in absolute shock. Marcus stumbled backward, dropping his crystal champagne glass as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "How did you get in here?" Valeria stuttered, desperately clinging to his arm as her face turned pale with sheer terror. "I'm the founder of the company," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the digital corporate records, fully exposing Marcus's massive embezzlement and immediate termination. Marcus's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of his elite colleagues. Valeria fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me not to take everything away from them. I looked down at the people who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "You are both bankrupt," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away to face justice. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom with absolutely nothing, while I rule my empire in complete peace. If you love seeing toxic traitors get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below. How long would you have waited to expose them? My manipulative husband convinced me I was a poor dependent housewife after a terrible car accident, completely unaware that my memory had fully returned a week ago. 3 months ago, I woke up in a hospital bed with temporary amnesia. Julian, a man claiming to be my loving husband, took me to a small, isolated guest house on a massive estate. He told me I was just a former maid he fell in love with and that his brilliant business partner, Valeria, owned the entire property. For weeks, I played the role of the confused, submissive wife, silently watching as Julian and Valeria engaged in a deeply unprofessional and intimate relationship right in front of my face. They laughed cruelly, celebrating how easily they had forged my medical proxy documents to seize control of my tech empire while my brain was healing. They thought I was permanently erased, trapped in a fake reality they created. What those two arrogant individuals didn't realize was that the fog in my mind cleared completely 7 days ago. I remembered every single password, every hidden server, and every billion-dollar account that legally belonged to me. During the night, I quietly accessed my secure remote servers and forwarded their forged medical declarations and massive offshore transfers directly to a federal investigative task force. Tonight, Julian and Valeria were hosting a lavish corporate award gala where Valeria was about to accept the CEO of the Year trophy from my company. I didn't stay in that little guest house acting like a servant. I pushed open the grand mahogany doors of the award stage wearing a flawless ruby red designer suit, flanked by an elite team of federal financial investigators. The orchestral music abruptly stopped as the wealthy crowd gasped in absolute shock at my return. Julian stumbled backward, his arrogant, fake savior smile vanishing instantly as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "But you can't remember anything," Valeria stuttered, her face turning pale white with sheer terror as she realized her entire fake life was over. "My memory is perfect, and you are both fired," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the glowing digital tablet, fully exposing their massive psychological manipulation and financial fraud on the massive party screens. The federal agents calmly detained Julian in front of the entire elite crowd, securing him for immediate questioning. Valeria fell to her knees in her expensive designer dress, sobbing and desperately begging me to drop the federal charges. I walked right up to the stage, taking my golden trophy back, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your little fantasy is permanently over," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door to face severe justice. Today, they are facing decades in a federal penitentiary for fraud, while I rule my empire with absolute clarity. If you love seeing toxic manipulators face the absolute consequences of their own actions, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below. How long would you have played along? My arrogant husband threw me out of our luxury mansion to move in his new fiancée, completely unaware that my secret real estate empire legally owned the entire property. For 3 years, I played the role of a quiet, supportive wife, allowing Julian to live in absolute luxury while he believed he was paying the mortgage. But last week, I returned home from a business trip to a devastating sight. Julian was intimately kissing a younger woman named Chloe right in the center of our living room. Chloe was wearing a lavish, custom-fitted wedding dress, twirling around and admiring the grand chandeliers. When they noticed me, they didn't even show an ounce of guilt. Julian calmly walked over, handed me a single packed suitcase, and coldly informed me that he was upgrading his life. Chloe laughed, adjusting her diamond veil, and told me to leave the keys on the counter because she was moving in permanently. I walked out the front door into the freezing rain, but the moment I was out of their sight, my sad tears completely vanished. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I was the anonymous billionaire CEO of the property management group that owned their entire lifestyle. The cars, the bank accounts, and the mansion were entirely in my name. Today, Julian and Chloe were hosting a massive, incredibly expensive wedding rehearsal dinner inside my house, showing off to hundreds of elite guests. I didn't return to the mansion wearing oversized sweaters to beg for my marriage back. I pushed open the grand double doors, wearing a flawless, pristine white designer suit, completely upstaging the bride. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a highly professional team of federal marshals and financial investigators. The romantic string quartet abruptly stopped as the wealthy guests gasped in absolute shock at my transformation. Julian stumbled backward, his face turning pale white as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "What are you doing at my wedding?" Chloe stuttered, her arrogant confidence completely shattering him. "I'm just here to serve an eviction notice," I whispered softly. I handed the lead marshal the digital property deeds, fully exposing Julian's massive financial fraud and complete lack of ownership. Julian's toxic smirk vanished instantly as the marshals calmly informed him he had exactly 5 minutes to vacate my premises. Chloe fell to her knees in her expensive wedding dress, sobbing and begging the officers to let her stay. I walked right up to the beautiful fireplace, looking down at the pathetic narcissists who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your lease is officially terminated," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door with nothing but the clothes on their backs. Today they are facing a federal courtroom, while I enjoy my morning coffee in my perfectly quiet mansion. If you love seeing arrogant cheaters lose absolutely everything, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, would you have let them finish the wedding cake?
My arrogant husband demanded a divorce so he could marry his billionaire female boss. But his cruel smirk permanently vanished when I walked into their corporate gala and fired them both on the spot. And I spent the last 5 years playing the role of a quiet, supportive stay-at-home wife to help Ethan build his career from absolutely nothing. But the moment Ethan got promoted to senior vice president, he completely changed, becoming disgustingly obsessed with high society status and power. He started having a dirty, secret affair with Victoria, the ruthless and incredibly wealthy regional CEO of his tech company. One night, Ethan aggressively threw signed divorce papers directly into my face, laughing cruelly as Victoria stepped right out of my own master bedroom. "I need a powerful woman who can elevate my career, Mia, not a pathetic housewife who just cooks and cleans," Ethan sneered viciously at me. Victoria looked me up and down with pure disgust, violently tossing a $100 bill at my feet and telling me to pack my cheap bags and leave. I was left standing alone in the hallway, but instead of crying, a cold, calculating, and incredibly dark smile slowly spread across my face. What Ethan and Victoria didn't know was that I wasn't just a simple, broke housewife. I was the hidden, sole billionaire heiress of the sterling global conglomerate. While Ethan was away at the office, I was secretly trading billions offshore, and I had just initiated a hostile corporate takeover of Victoria's entire company. 2 weeks later, Victoria hosted a massive, highly publicized corporate gala to officially celebrate Ethan's promotion, and the grand ballroom was packed with the city's wealthiest elites and board members when I suddenly pushed open the heavy oak doors, wearing a dangerously tight, custom black revenge dress. "Security! Throw this broke, pathetic trash out of my gala right now!" Victoria shrieked aggressively, pointing her trembling finger directly at me. But the heavily armed security guards didn't move a single muscle. Instead, the entire board of directors rushed forward and bowed perfectly to me in unison. Ethan physically stumbled backward, his face turning entirely pale with sheer unadulterated terror as my lead attorney handed me a glowing microphone. "I am the new global chairwoman of this entire conglomerate," I announced with absolute, freezing authority, my voice echoing through the silent, shocked room. Victoria, your division is officially liquidated, and Ethan, I am legally seizing all your corporate shares to pay off your massive hidden debts. Ethan dropped heavily to his knees on the cold marble floor, sobbing hysterically and begging for mercy while Victoria screamed in total, public humiliation. I aggressively yanked my expensive high heel away from his grasping hands, coldly ordering my security to drag them both out into the freezing rain. Today, my cheating husband and his arrogant boss are sweeping floors for minimum wage, while I sit flawlessly on my absolute throne as the ultimate corporate queen.
My arrogant new husband formed an inappropriate alliance with my own 20-year-old daughter, completely unaware that I am the leading CEO of a global private intelligence firm. For 2 years, I played the role of a supportive, oblivious mother and a devoted wife, giving Julian and Mia a life of absolute luxury. But last month, my hidden security network alerted me to an unprofessional conspiracy. I watched through the hidden cameras as Julian influenced my daughter in my own living room. He was manipulating her, convincing her to help him tamper with my legal authorizations to access my massive offshore trust fund. They thought I was just a wealthy, gullible widow they could easily replace and ignore. What those two arrogant individuals didn't realize was that I had already frozen every single asset and redirected their unauthorized transfers directly to a federal investigative unit. Tonight, Julian was hosting a lavish gala for himself inside my mansion, celebrating his supposed new fortune with my daughter proudly by his side. I didn't walk down the stairs to beg for my family back. I pushed open the grand mahogany doors wearing a flawless white designer suit, flanked by an elite team of federal investigators. The upbeat party music abruptly stopped as the wealthy crowd gasped in absolute shock. Julian stumbled backward, his arrogant smile vanishing instantly as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "What is happening here?" Mia stuttered, her face turning pale white with sheer terror as she realized the investigation was real. "I'm officially terminating our legal connection," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the glowing digital tablet, fully exposing Julian's massive financial fraud and their unprofessional conduct on the massive party screens. The federal agents calmly detained Julian in front of the entire elite crowd, securing him for immediate questioning. Mia fell to her knees, sobbing and begging me to let her keep her status. I looked down at the people who betrayed my trust, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your access to my world is permanently denied," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door to face justice. Today, they are facing a federal courtroom while I rule my intelligence empire in perfect peace. If you love seeing toxic people face the consequences of their own choices, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, how long would you have waited to expose them? I caught my arrogant husband in a deeply compromising position with his secretary, but they had absolutely no idea I was the secret chairman of their entire company. For 2 years, I played the role of a sweet, clueless housewife, quietly funding Julian's fast-tracked corporate career through my private holding firm. I let him believe he was a self-made genius. But yesterday, I visited his corporate office to surprise him with lunch. When I opened his heavy mahogany doors, I saw the ultimate, sickening betrayal. He was intimately tangled with his secretary, Vanessa, in a highly suggestive embrace right on top of his executive desk. When they noticed me standing in the doorway, they didn't even stop. Vanessa slowly buttoned her blouse, laughed cruelly, and told me to leave the adults to their business. Julian coldly ordered me to go home and wait for the divorce papers, calling me a boring nobody who didn't belong in his high-class world. I backed out of the office in tears, but the moment the elevator doors closed, my crying stopped instantly. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that my signature was on every single corporate lease and major stock certificate in that building. Today, Julian was hosting a massive board meeting to formally accept his promotion to CEO. He was standing at the head of the table, bragging to the investors, with Vanessa smiling proudly by his side. I didn't return to the office as the crying, weak housewife. I pushed open the glass boardroom doors wearing a flawless crimson designer suit, letting my icy blonde hair fall perfectly down my back. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a massive team of elite federal financial investigators. The lively boardroom abruptly fell dead silent as the wealthy executives gasped in absolute shock at my transformation. Julian stumbled backward, dropping his expensive pen as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "Who let you in here?" Vanessa stuttered, her seductive confidence completely shattering as her face turned pale with sheer terror. "I'm just taking my seat at the head of the table," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the digital corporate records, fully exposing Julian's massive embezzlement, the stolen money he used to fund their affair. Julian's arrogant smile vanished instantly as the federal agents calmly detained him in front of the entire board. Vanessa fell to her knees, sobbing and begging the agents to let her go. I walked right up to the front of the room, looking down at the pathetic narcissists who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "You are both terminated," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted away to face justice. Today, they are sitting in a federal courtroom with absolutely nothing while I rule my empire from the chairman's seat. If you love seeing toxic cheaters get exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, how satisfying was their downfall? My arrogant billionaire boss forced me to clean up trash at his luxury wedding. He and his cruel bride wanted to humiliate me in front of hundreds of elite guests. But they had absolutely no idea who was actually hiding behind my cheap glasses. I'm Alara, and I am not just a pathetic underpaid corporate secretary. I am an undercover senior federal inspector specializing in taking down corrupt billionaires. For 2 agonizing years, I played the role of a weak, invisible servant. I quietly fetched their coffees while secretly hacking into their offshore bank accounts. My boss, Julian, had stolen billions of dollars from innocent pensioners to fund his lavish lifestyle. And his beautiful, toxic bride, Isabella, was completely complicit in his massive fraud. On their wedding day, Isabella made it her personal mission to torture me. She deliberately threw a full glass of dark red wine right into my face. "Know your place, garbage," she laughed, while Julian smirked in his custom white tuxedo. I didn't cry, and I didn't run away in shame. I simply wiped the wine from my eyes and reached into my cheap catering apron. I pulled out a glowing red remote control and stared directly into Isabella's soul. With one satisfying click, I completely hijacked the massive LED screens above the wedding altar. Instead of romantic photos, high-definition security footage began playing for everyone to see. It was Isabella, passionately kissing the best man in the bridal suite just an hour ago. The entire ballroom erupted into chaotic gasps as Isabella dropped to her knees in sheer panic. Julian's face turned purple with rage, but his anger didn't last long. Before he could scream, the heavy stained glass doors of the church violently burst open. 30 heavily armed FBI tactical agents stormed down the aisle with their rifles raised. They slammed Julian against the pristine white altar and violently slapped handcuffs on his wrists. Isabella screamed hysterically, begging for Julian to save her, but he was completely paralyzed with fear. I slowly took off my cheap glasses and dropped my stained apron onto the marble floor. Underneath, I was wearing a dangerously sharp, custom-tailored designer suit. The tactical commander walked up to me and saluted perfectly in front of the terrified elite crowd. "Target secured, Chief Inspector," he announced as Julian's jaw dropped in absolute horror. I walked right past the sobbing bride and looked my ex-boss dead in the eyes. Today, they are sharing a concrete prison cell while I hunt down the next billionaire.
No, it can't be you.
Yes, Julian. It's me.
My toxic biological mother cruelly humiliated the love of my life, completely unaware that she was digging her own financial grave. For an entire year, my handsome boyfriend, Julian, pretended to be a struggling, underpaid mechanic who could barely afford rent. My mother, a terrifyingly arrogant and status-obsessed aristocrat, absolutely despised him for being poor and ruining her perfect family image. Yesterday, I brought Julian to our luxury mansion, and she unleashed her absolute worst, most toxic behavior. "Get your filthy, cheap boots off my imported marble floors, you pathetic beggar!" she screamed, violently throwing a stack of cash directly at his face. She actually slapped him, called security, and forced them to drag him out into the freezing heavy rain. "You are marrying the Duke's son tomorrow, and that piece of trash is dead to us," she hissed, locking me in my bedroom. I cried fake tears and fell to the floor. But the truth was, I wasn't heartbroken at all. I was the only person in the entire world who knew Julian's terrifying, hidden secret. The poor mechanic my mother just assaulted was actually the supreme CEO of the Vanguard global banking empire. The very next day, I was forced to stand at the altar in a $1 million white wedding dress next to an arrogant fake groom. My mother was proudly raising her champagne glass to the elite crowd, celebrating her ultimate greedy victory. But suddenly, the deafening roar of a massive military helicopter completely shattered the stained glass windows of the church. The chopper landed violently in the courtyard, blowing away the wedding flowers and sending the wealthy guests into a blind panic. My mother laughed, assuming the royal guards had arrived to arrest a trespasser, but instead, 50 heavily armed elite federal tactical agents marched down the aisle and perfectly bowed to the man stepping out of the helicopter. Julian walked into the church wearing a flawless custom designer suit, radiating absolute, terrifying billionaire dominance. My mother physically stumbled backward, dropping her expensive crystal glass as her face turned completely white with sheer terror. Julian didn't look at her. He walked straight to the altar, handed the federal agents a glowing digital foreclosure document, and took my hand. "I just bought your entire family trust, your mansion, and your massive debts," Julian announced coldly to my horrified mother. The armed agents violently slammed the fake groom against the wall and arrested my mother for decades of massive corporate tax fraud. She collapsed heavily to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, begging me to save her from total bankruptcy. I elegantly lifted my wedding veil, looked down at her ruined face, and whispered, "Know your place, Mother." Julian and I walked out of the church together, leaving her completely destroyed, bankrupt, and rotting in a federal prison cell. My greedy husband bribed my private physician to keep me in a medically induced slumber, completely unaware that my body had already built a tolerance to their unauthorized sedatives. For 3 agonizing weeks, I was trapped in my own luxury medical suite. I played the role of the tragic, comatose billionaire wife, while Julian and Dr. Chloe drained my medical technology empire. I laid perfectly still in that hospital bed, silently listening as Julian and Chloe formed an incredibly unprofessional conspiracy right next to my seemingly unconscious body. They laughed cruelly, celebrating how easily they had forged my medical proxy documents to seize my entire $50 billion corporate trust. They thought I was permanently silenced, just a wealthy stepping stone for their new life together. What those two arrogant individuals didn't realize was that I had secretly woken up days ago. During the night, while they slept in my mansion, I quietly accessed the secure medical terminal in my room and forwarded their forged prescriptions and massive offshore transfers directly to a federal investigative task force. Tonight, Julian was hosting a lavish charity gala to formally announce my permanent condition and officially take over my position as CEO, with Chloe proudly standing by his side as the new chief medical officer. I didn't stay in that hospital bed waiting for a miracle. I pushed open the grand mahogany doors of the ballroom wearing a flawless sapphire blue designer suit, flanked by an elite team of Federal Medical Board investigators. The upbeat orchestral music abruptly stopped as the wealthy crowd gasped in absolute shock at my complete recovery. Julian stumbled backward, his arrogant, grieving smile vanishing instantly as he stared directly into my perfectly focused, dominant eyes. "But you're supposed to be asleep," Chloe stuttered, her face turning pale white with sheer terror as she realized her medical license and her freedom were completely over. "I'm wide awake, and I'm officially terminating our partnership," I whispered softly. I handed the lead investigator the glowing digital tablet, fully exposing their massive financial fraud and severe medical malpractice on the massive party screens. The federal agents calmly detained Julian in front of the entire elite crowd, securing him for immediate questioning. Chloe fell to her knees in her expensive designer coat, sobbing and desperately begging me to drop the federal charges. I looked down at the people who tried to bury me alive, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your access to my life is permanently revoked," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door to face severe justice. Today, they are facing decades in a federal penitentiary, while I rule my medical empire with perfect clarity. If you love seeing toxic people face the absolute consequences of their own choices, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below, would you have let them finish their little speech? My toxic husband tried to lock me in a psychiatric facility to steal my tech empire, completely unaware that my master AI still controlled his entire life. For 4 years, I was the hidden genius behind our multi-billion-dollar smart home company, while Julian played the charismatic CEO. But his greed became an absolute obsession. Last month, he forged my medical records, claimed I was mentally unstable, and had me forcefully committed to a remote wellness clinic. He immediately moved his secret mistress Valeria into my fully automated, hyper-luxurious smart mansion. They thought they had permanently erased me and secured my entire fortune. What those two pathetic traitors didn't realize was that I wrote the foundational code for the mansion's artificial intelligence, and my biometric signature was the only master key. I quietly walked out of the clinic using my hidden administrative access, completely undetected. Tonight, Julian and Valeria were hosting a massive, incredibly expensive corporate gala inside my house, showing off my stolen technology to hundreds of elite investors. I didn't return wearing a hospital gown to beg for my freedom. Sitting in a black SUV parked outside, I pulled out my tablet and activated the ultimate lockdown protocol. The upbeat party music abruptly stopped, the mansion's heavy steel security shutters violently slammed shut, and the interior lights turned a terrifying, glowing red. The wealthy guests gasped in absolute shock as my voice echoed through the surround sound system, exposing Julian's massive financial fraud and my illegal confinement. Julian stumbled backward, his face turning pale white as the doors finally unlocked, revealing me standing in the entrance, wearing a flawless black designer suit. And I wasn't alone. I was flanked by a highly professional team of federal cyber crime investigators. Valeria fell to her knees in her expensive dress, sobbing and desperately trying to hide from the authorities. I walked right up to the arrogant narcissist who betrayed me, radiating absolute, untouchable control. "Your system access is permanently denied," I announced, turning my back as they were escorted out the door in heavy steel handcuffs. Today they are sitting in a federal penitentiary, while I enjoy my fully automated, perfectly quiet mansion. If you love seeing arrogant traitors get permanently locked out of their stolen lives, hit that subscribe button right now. And let me know in the comments below. Would you have left them trapped inside a little longer? I went undercover as a maid in my own penthouse just to watch my fiancé cheat with my best friend. I am the youngest self-made billionaire in the country, but I desperately wanted to test the true loyalty of the man I was about to marry. I secretly hired a fake management company dressed up in a cheap maid uniform and watched as my beautiful gold-digging best friend, Chloe, made her move. Julie and Chloe intimately tangled together on my expensive leather sofa, silently mocking me and holding back cruel laughter as I quietly scrubbed the marble floors right in front of them. They thought I was just a pathetic, invisible servant. The very next morning,